Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and today we have a special guest who came back to share us more information about our health and well-being. And we're going to focus on our emotions and how our emotions are very important because they really guide our physical, mental, and spiritual essence. So, Dr. Kevin, welcome. Thank you for joining me again.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was such a delight last time, and I wanted to say so much more, and I'm so thankful for the invite back. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you. And so please, let's begin with really understanding how emotions really impact our health and well-being. We know that we feel them, but the internal impact is what I believe I would love to educate my audience on. And, you know, you're the expert, so I appreciate you coming on board and helping us to really get a better understanding.
Well, thank you. And I want to give honor to the woman who discovered how emotions are moving around in the body, how we are feeling them, and that is Dr. Candace Pert. She wrote an amazing book that is definitely okay for the average reader, for the layperson. It's called Molecules of Emotion. Yes. And part of the story is about her experiences as a woman in the NIH back in the 70s and 80s, perhaps a little bit earlier. And then her discovery, her breakthrough that made her a world-renowned researcher and scientist. And so for a simple statement is we have these hormones. They're hormones that are produced by the brain. They're produced by different organs, and they travel throughout the bloodstream. And they come with a sensation component that we physically experience when that event reminds us of something from the past. And then based on if it's something new, well, then we get to formulate the meaning of that experience, and then it gets caught up later for our remembrance so that we can act in accordance to what that feeling or sensation is.
So the emotion will come up based on that experience, that picture in the mind, because we know we think in pictures, right? We can only think in pictures.
Well, yeah,
and as soon as we are triggered by that picture, we begin to bring back the past experience to label whether it's good or bad, if I understand.
So when the picture is activated, it calls up all the senses that we have. It's never alone. There's a smell component, there's a taste component, there's a feeling sensation, and there's even more than the 5 senses that we have. Nonetheless, when one component is pulled up or it's activated from an external event, all the factors are brought up. And so while some factors are more prominent, maybe a physical sensation or an auditory experience, but the picture's there as well. And we get all of that. Yet some people are tuned more into the picture. Some people are more tuned into the physical sensation. And of course, others are tuned into the auditory component. Yeah.
And the body reacts. The physical body reacts to that.
It must respond. It's because it brought up that mind component, and then the physiology that matches that mind component has to activate.
Wow. So talk to us, and understanding this will, hopefully at the end of this show, the audience has a better sense of how to manage these emotions that come up, because at the end of the day, we get to decide. We get to make that choice whether we want to accept that emotion and act on it or reject it. I learned through my own coaching and mentorship, it's like you can have a thought and the thought activates, that picture, and that picture begins to give you feelings. You get to choose. But sometimes people say it's hard to choose when, it's
Well,
right there.
indeed, it is. It can be hard to choose. And so
Hmm.
think of a spectrum. And so what I feel what you're talking about is what I hear people saying is what's called emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And that means the capabilities to make a conscious choice based on the emotion. With
Mm.
that being stated, when there's an unresolved emotional pattern
Yes.
or it's raw, meaning when I say raw, meaning there's a lot of intensity, there's a gigantic flood of those neurohormones, the chemistry associated with that thought, then it's harder to regulate, it's harder to control, and that takes a conscious effort. And one of
Yes.
my earlier teachers in my professional career taught me something he called the monkey mind exercise.
Mm.
And it's an awareness game of the feeling component of our body in response to that picture, that
Yes.
emotional flood. And it also brings me to think about Stephen Covey and his
Mm.
book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, where he talked about how to generate that space between in that reaction between the impulse, between
Yeah.
the experience, and then the
The react.
response. There's that gap there that we can learn to widen, and that really is the game of that emotional intelligence. So we can make that conscious choice in the midst of that emotional flood.
Yes, I love that because that's, that's based, I mean, on responding or reacting, right? And then when you
Right.
have that space,
Right.
then you have a chance to really think about how you're going to respond. Because I know for sure when we respond instead of react, we're in control,
Yeah.
right? We're in control. I just want to tell everyone what you do because I know you didn't
Oh,
fully, you said your name, but I want them to know exactly the practice that you are
of
currently doing.
course. Well, this conversation may lead people to think I have a different degree. However, where I started is as a doctor of chiropractic. I got my doctorate in 2006. Now, most people go, "Whoa, you're a chiropractor. Why are you talking about emotions?"
Yeah.
Well, what chiropractic is really about is about the brain, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the
Mhm.
things that enhance the expression, the normal, optimal expression of that, or bring that down. And in the science and the art and the philosophy of chiropractic, and I'm going to add a wrinkle to that today, is there's really four categories in which we can enhance the expression of the optimal brain and central nervous system, or
Yeah.
we can break it down. And that's physical things like trauma, physical traumas, car accidents, or falls, but it can also be repetitious activities. And then there's things like the
Hmm.
chemistry of life, the food that we put in, the toxins that we get in, knowingly or unknowingly. There's it was originally called auto suggestion. So these are the loops of mental patterns. Some of them are
Hmm.
detrimental, and some of them are productive. And then
Yes.
we now know there's an energetic layer of the human body called the biofield, and that has its own anatomy. And so that is informing us of experiences that are beyond the physical body, but the physical body also integrates with that through another system in the myofascia that acupuncturists tap into
Yes.
called the meridians, and that's another communication system that integrates with the central nervous system. And in the aim of balancing that, harmonizing that, chiropractic has a wide tree of techniques that address the structure, that address the organs and the chemistry, that address the mind component and the field component. And where my path has gone as a chiropractor is I went very heavy musculoskeletal. I got into a lot of mechanics, biomechanics of movement.
Hmm.
What's different terms for that. And then I got deeply into energy healing because of some of my training and a postgraduate work. Though that led to that was all wired together with optimizing food and minimizing toxins and
Hmm.
optimizing mental states. And in that mental state conversation, yes, affirmations, EFT tapping,
Yeah.
other techniques like that. But I also got into and I studied for quite some time different forms of Reiki, different forms of qigong, and then there's other realms of energy healing world that have shown in standard medical or research-based analysis that you can
Yes.
find articles on PubMed if anyone wants to really search for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's phenomenal studies done by quantum
Psyche.
physicists and
Hmm.
whatnot. Yes, Psyche by Bruce Lipton.
Yes. The
My
emotion
goodness,
code, Dr. Nelson. I
Doctor,
mean,
the emotion code. Where my specialty lies
yes.
is in the chiropractic world is in three different ways. I wanted to find the most effective, efficient, proficient method for structure, for the biochemistry, and for the mind realm. And that translated, the mind realm actually translated into the energy realm.
Yes.
And so structurally, I do a lot of things that many chiropractors do, though there's an advanced technique called advanced biostructural correction. And then in the mind realm, the where all the where a significant level of like now medically accepted research is something called neuro-emotional technique. And this is getting phenomenal changes because it literally rewires the brain in less than 2 minutes. We see a neurologic change on functional MRI and a physiological change in the organ systems. And
Wow.
then the other components are about how to decipher what organ needs help, what nutrient needs to be used to negate a toxin or pathogen, and then the energetic anatomy all can be communicated with through different systems of reflexes that the professional can get feedback from. And even in that world, there's systems that have higher effectiveness and efficiency than other systems. And that's something, this kinesiology world I've been deeply exploring for the last 12 years. Wow, now 15 years now. Yeah.
It's amazing because I mean, you hit it just on the nose. This whole um, understanding of the energetic body and how it really functions, our different systems, is just becoming bringing awareness to people about it, because there's no advertisement about it.
Mm.
We're not hearing, on the commercials about energy healing. There's no talk about it. And when I entered into this field, it just, for me, it changed my whole, the inside, the feeling of going into releasing the emotions, the trapped emotions from my past and from my, negative traumas in my life. Just made a whole big difference in my healing process. Can
Right.
we speak about that a little bit? Like how
Absolutely.
the emotions really affect our health from, first it's in the energetic field, and then it manifests out into the physical field,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
Into our physical body.
Right. So let's go back to the basics. I think this is
Yes,
the most important thing,
yes,
fundamental principles. So this
yes.
means chemistry class. This means
Okay, let's
biology
do it.
class.
Science
And
wasn't my favorite thing, but even though I'm a science teacher, but go ahead, let's do
well,
it.
it's not. And simply it has to do with the atom, the
Yes,
atomic. Let's just talk about water. Most people are familiar with H2O.
yes,
So we have an atom of oxygen and two atoms of hydrogen. Somehow they stick together.
yes,
And this is where the conversation between the advanced medical provider, the advanced researcher gets lost in the everyday language of energy healing. There's
yes.
woo-woo tie with that. However, we forget to go back to the fundamental principles. And so how that oxygen and the two hydrogen molecules stick together is a form of energy. We have a negative pole and a positive pole, and they stick together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the nuances beyond that for all the other molecular structures out there, let's drop that. However, we know that that is a reality. And with that, when we look at, let's say, the largest singular living unit of a human body is a cell. A cell. A cell has a wall. We can look at it as like an oval, a circle,
Mm-hmm.
like a snow globe. We can see the bubble, all
Mm-hmm.
three dimensions, and we have that cell wall, and we have a brain on the inside. There's fluid on the inside of that brain, and these different. We have the mitochondria, the organelles. We have different structures within that, and in that, and that's all housed within a fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And that cell has fluid on the inside, and then there's fluid on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been as you know, what has been discovered is that the brain is actually the cell wall. which regulates things coming in and out, and all these components that operate and they do have movement
It's called the epicell, right?
are
The
all
epicell.
based on these charges, positive and negative charges, and depends on the levels of what's the best way to describe it? Like the Russian nestling doll, each molecule has layers of electrons around it, and those electrons get shifted back and forth depending on what they interact with, and that produces some type of function. And then the cell does it what it's supposed to do, and then if it's doing what it's supposed to do, we can experience the healthiness or the wellness of that, and which means that translates to moving well, thinking well, feeling well, sleeping
Right.
well, engaged in life, serving, but also having your time, your life, your balance. So that hopefully is kind of a nutshell of the conversation of energy and how we can get from kind of the woo-woo conversation of it to a accepted medical concept. And then how that plays out in our body has to do with those hormones, those neurochemistry.
Yeah.
And every medical professional would agree that we have hormones, and those hormones are sent and received based on different needs and responses that the brain and the nervous system is identifying and responding to.
Wow.
And in that response, there's a charge, positive or a negative charge. And in chiropractic, we call that tone. Tone. So tone, we can then take a jump to music. And then if we take a jump to music, we can all reflect upon songs that we like, songs that we don't like, that can stimulate a feeling within us. So
Yes.
we know that we can be stimulated externally, trying to, by the Nutcracker Suite. Let's start,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
and simple. And though most people hear that, and there's a smile, there's a lightening of it. There's a relaxation of the body. My daughter, she loves to dance, so she hears that, boom, she's off dancing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but we all have that, and that kind of bridges that gap from energy to the atom to the molecule to our physical experience.
I think people, understand, like when you say, I feel so energized today, or I feel I have no energy to do anything. Like they'll use it in very layman terms, but in essence, they're actually feeling that energy that we can't see. Like we can't see oxygen, but we know we're using it every day.
Right, that's right.
Energy is basically the same way. I mean, we're going back how many years where Albert Einstein said everything is energy. And what does that leave out?
Well,
Nothing.
it's
Nothing.
nothing, in fact, what we know is when we have the microscope, the physical matter that can be contacted or physically manipulated is about I believe 2 to 4% of the cell, or of the atom. Excuse me. The atomic component. The
Mhm.
rest is quote unquote empty space. Though what has been identified is that there's different terms for it, but we can call it the opposite side of the magnet. So if the physical component is the positive side, the negative side is the non-physical component. And what's been realized is that there's vast more non-physical component and a vast a resource of energy that has yet to express in the physical domain, that is contained in that quote unquote negative space or dark energy.
Right.
It's just not an evil or a good, it's a negative or a positive. And we all know this is in existence because of what we have come to learn about the atom bomb. The
Mm.
amount of energy that is expressed from that negative space vastly supersedes what's present in the physical space.
Wow, that's awesome. So let's take a short commercial break. And when we come back, I really want to learn about the bioresonance of emotions because that is really interesting. And we'll be right back.
Right.
Now, the vast majority Approximately 95% of the people of all countries go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people that we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so let's talk about this new system of, I believe, is really bringing life back into the human being because of the fact that it really controls our health when the emotions that when we hold them and they're staying in our body, it comes out to the physical body and we have health issues. So help us to understand, this new, I don't want to say new system because I'm sure it's been around, but tell us about it, all about it.
Well, here's the phrase that's in the neuroemotional technique community, and it is this: the issues get stuck in the tissues. And we all know this.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
It's so true.
And I want everyone to reflect upon someone they may know or have witnessed that's under 10 years old. We can see their body language. We can see a kid's body language and can determine if they're disappointed or if they're excited, and many things in between. In fact, since whoever's watching, since you were born, you have been doing your mind, your brain have been collecting data at every moment of every day of every interaction of facial expressions and body language and tones of voice, and this has been connected and wired and tested all throughout your youth and all throughout your teenage years. And we inherently, and with such great accuracy and through tiny nuances of body movement and tones of voice and inflection, can determine, oftentimes great accuracy, what someone's going through, what someone's experiencing. That it's that human component of being alive that people reflect upon or comment on. And so when we have these experiences of being the one who's emoting that language of the issues get stuck in the tissues, well, it shows up in a couple different ways. It shows up in the voice, it shows up in body language, it shows up in facial expressions.
Yes.
It shows up, though, in organ function as well. Just like we referred to earlier in the conversation, that when that picture comes up, all the senses are activated.
Yes.
Well, that's true in every emotional state, whether at peace or at anger or in shock or dismay, happiness. All components of the body are responding in kind based on a couple factors, though nonetheless, it's kind of like a habit we start to wire ourselves into.
Yes.
There's a nature component and there's a nurture component, meaning we're born with components that automatically come in, and there's parts that we develop based on our experiences and our environments and what we learn, what we come to believe. Something I learned a couple of years ago, and I wish I could cite the psychologist who mentioned it. So every kid who's born, or a girl or boy, has over 400 unique psychological expressions, no matter what the parents do or train or whatever environment they put them in, that must be expressed throughout their younger years. And
wow,
what I've come to know is that the younger years are really under 30. or up to about 30. And that has to do with other reasons why I say that, not just the age of 7 or 12 or 15 or 18 or 21. There are those kind of ages are society's landmarks, like Sweet 16 or your 18th birthday or 21st. Those are arbitrary numbers. The body has its own patterns and its own systems of maturity, and we are expressing these unconscious patterns, and then we get to work on bringing them into balance, and then we get to work on mastering them at 30-year patterns.
I love, you just mentioned the word unconscious, and subconscious is the same thing. Can we just touch upon a little bit, because Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton also mentioned how before the age of 7, there's a lot of subconscious beliefs or habits that we build. And that kind of really becomes almost like the GPS of our lives as we get older to make decisions. So if there is an experience that we've had prior to the age 7, just like we tie our shoe or we brush our teeth, it becomes, we're on autopilot to do that as we get older. So the experiences that impact us emotionally at age prior to 7, which again falls into like, how do we manage those emotions that we don't even know that experience becomes a trigger for the future decisions that we make.
Right. So the simple answer is the brain shifts gears at that age from a delta brainwave state to another brainwave state. And then later on in life, in the teenage years, is another shift. And with each shift of brainwave state, we get access to different features of how the brain can function. So that's where, for kids under 7, the arts, the music, the play, the exploration is so important.
Yes.
It's the imagination component, the dream state. Delta is, I believe it's called delta brainwave. And this is where we get to have that creativity. Though we shift gears, and then we can start to learn didactic knowledge. So we get to memorize things. We read, we start to learn arithmetic. And that's when the brain's engaged for that. And later on in life, we have different access to different brainwave states where we can have greater levels of reason and choosing and whatnot. And so with each of those states comes a different vibrational pattern. A different word I could use is oscillation. So the atom moves, the brain waves move at a certain rate or have a certain capacity or range of oscillations. And then that oscillation produces a force. Like if I were to, if I was in a pool and pushing a board up and down at a certain pace, it would produce a certain kind of wave in the water, a ripple. But if I put more force, higher and lower, and it did it at a slower or faster pace, it would change the wave. And our physical body, our physical organs are responding to those waves, and our life is responding to those waves. In fact, in medical science, we'll acknowledge this. We know at certain levels of the atom and the molecule, they're able to tune in to the sound. They produce a sound, just like a star.
Frequency.
A frequency, but that frequency, depending on what tools you're measuring with, it could be a tool that's analyzing light, a tool that's analyzing sound.
Yes.
Both of them produce it. These atoms and these molecules produce a sound wave, produce a light wave. In fact, when sperm meets egg, they've been able to see there's a flash of light. And yes, there's a chemistry component that occurs at that flash of light, but there's also a visual representation that occurs with that flash of light.
Wow. So hence why I would say things like the red light would help the body to heal.
Right. Yes. The red light therapy. That's correct.
The red light therapy.
Right. And there's different kinds of red light. There's different components of the spectrum of red light, parts that we can see, parts that we can't see. And you mentioned the word bioresonance. So let's break that word down for a minute. Bio meaning life, resonance meaning that oscillation. So let's talk about the resonance for a factor. If I have a tuning fork A at 128 hertz, if I have another tuning fork here for ring number 1, it should vibrate number 2 if it's the same, if it matches. That's called resonance. And there's all kinds of wonderful YouTube high school science teachers that demonstrate all kinds of different ways to observe this in our reality. And one of the coolest ones, well, one of the most simple ones I saw was a teacher put a tuning fork in like some type of holding unit and put a balloon on the end of a string and let that balloon rest against the tuning fork. And then they rang the other tuning fork. And as they got close to it, the balloon vibrated off the other tuning fork, but you couldn't see anything between the tuning forks, just like a radio communication between the broadcasting station to your car.
Yeah. Oh, us right here. A perfect example.
Us right here, or any phone call. Or before cell phones, this happened to me all the time, and it started to have me question my intuitive abilities in a positive way. Though I would frequently, when we had the phones on the wall back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and before, of course, I would pick up the phone, and the person I was calling would already be on the other end of the line, and we would both be like, "Hello, hello, 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 hello," and it was so odd that the ring didn't occur, but we both picked up the phone at the same time.
Yeah.
And one more, it just comes up again. I want to say one more thing. There's a couple studies done between twins. They physically separated them by hundreds, in some cases thousands of miles, put one twin in a lead-lined room and blacked it out and put some special sensors that would measure their retina activity and their brainwave activity. And then the other twin, they would shine light in their eye, and the first twin would have to notate to the researchers when they felt or experienced light in their own eye, and it added up. It added up. So this is that quantum entanglement phenomena. If anyone wants to research that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So this system that helps to regulate emotions, or the bioresonance of emotion, can you explain that a little bit more?
So there's a number of technologies out there that do this now, and there's a medical term, vibroacoustic therapy. Okay, you can find a couple great TED Talks on it. You can see literature on it, and that's a fancy way of saying sound therapy or sound healing.
Yeah.
And this is where the monks of hundreds and thousands of years have been chanting. This is where tribes were drumming and dancing and calling out and singing. This is why we hum. My moms hum with their kids, with their babies. There's a response. And so the concepts I want to lay down here is just like hearing aids, we can enhance a signal or cancel a signal.
Yes.
Same with noise canceling headphones. We can drown out sound from the outside. There's emotions that can be present that whether we're at the surface level, we're fully conscious of, or many of them are subtle below that immediate conscious level. And that can be detected by technology. And then tones or sounds can be listened to or sent towards the target. And then those negative emotions, there's ones that are down, can be influenced into a positive scale, positive side of things. Now, I have two components of conversation with that. One, it helps us get to a better place, which is extremely helpful for many people that are working on emotional intelligence and emotional maturity, and getting past those triggers, getting past those PTSDs, getting past those horrific events and traumas. And that is a necessary component. I needed that for myself. In fact, the technology I use in my practice, the AO scan, I used it because I had a significant concussion in 2018, and I stumbled upon it at attending a conference, and I got to experience it at the conference. I'm like, oh, I'm in, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I felt the shift immediately. And so I began to use it on a daily basis. And then it was so impactful. I started sharing the emotional component with my clients, and they had experiences, and so just continue to expand from there.
Beautiful.
And but the other side of that coin is, with that shift into the positive, we want to optimally be able to engage our own consciousness and our own subconscious and our own unconscious and our own superconscious to begin to do that for ourselves, not
Yeah.
relying on outside sources. Yet we have radio frequencies, cell phone frequencies, Wi-Fi frequencies, from my computer, from my printer, from 5G towers, and other technologies that aren't commonly known, are constantly beaming other signals that our body and our mind are responding to negatively. So sometimes the negative feelings we are getting or receiving are not our own, but oftentimes they're mistaken as our own. So this is the blend of both ancient technology, ancient wisdom, and
Yes.
advanced technology using computers and algorithms and mathematics.
Yes. And I put it in simple terms with my clients, and I say, emotion is energy in motion, right? And like the air, like I said before, we don't see it, but it's there. This is why a banana turns brown, because the energy that's moving through it is creating, is energy is passing through it. But when we have trauma in our life, we can't say, well, I forgot about that, it's over, I'm done and over with, because your energetic body, the energy that is that was stuck from that emotion, right? I'm sorry, from that trauma, creates, Dr. Nelson pointed out, like a little ball, like a tennis ball of emotion. So from that trauma, if you say, okay, mentally, you may say, okay, I'm done and over with. It's, whatever. I'm okay with it. I've accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't cleared the other side of it, which is that energy that is blocked somewhere in your tissues, right? In your
Right.
organ. And if that stays there, it will manifest into the physical body. Hence why it's so important to release. Even though you're saying to yourself, I'm okay, I'm done, it's over with, you have to change that part of it in the body in order for us to get well. And I believe this is where we say, there's a lot of mental issues going on in this world, because we're not addressing it at a deeper level, at the root of what caused that, and heal that.
Well,
Am I right to say this?
I think yes, I believe you are very accurate here, and we need to honor a few things as a global society, a planet. We have gone under extreme trauma the last 5 years.
Yes.
Whatever side of the camp of what should have been done, what could have been done, what was done, wherever you fall on that, there's intense experiences, and those intense experiences, the brain does something amazing. It automatically wires, it's called a synapse in the brain, automatically wires every experience. This is why hypnosis or hypnotists can go into a session with somebody and can pull up experiences that that individual has no conscious recollection of, yet they have memories of and physical reactions to. And so I know I can only speak to neuroemotional technique, where I have my advanced training, and what the research is showing us is that the brain has these synapses that are wired.
Yes.
And so, yes, someone has done psychology on something, has done talk therapy, has done all kinds of different therapies, and yet that synaptic wiring, the brain wiring, is still present. So if something that relates to that emotional trigger shows up in that person's day today, it will activate that synapse network, and depending on how robust that synapse network is, kind of like the analogy is like walking a path. So if I only walk that path once or twice, that response, or I should say the reaction, would be smaller reaction versus if I walk that path 1,000 times, 10,000 times, that response would be effective and efficient. Doesn't necessarily mean it's happy, but it would be boom, profound. And that's the emotional triggers that people with PTSD or whatever are experiencing, because it has been so ingrained, so connected to a core self-preservation component that it has to fire to get the individual into a position of security and safety. Now that may mean, I mean, it has all kinds of negative implications if it's out of self-regulation. However, that is what many people are experiencing. And when it's on a more subtle level, meaning people have worked on it emotionally, consciously, conversationally, whether professional or your neighbor or your best friend, that wiring is still present. And that means there's an organ system involved. That means there's a bony level involved at the spine. It means there's a neurologic component and beyond that relate to that circuit that connects to that emotional state, which is in a zone of the brain that relates to the physical body parts.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. You know, that this information is so vital for people to understand, because to get healed from that, it's inner work that needs to be done.
Right. It's the inner work.
Inner work. And, you know, when I say inner work, I don't mean go getting a bottle and, some medicine, because that's just a temporary fix. To really release that emotion is to bring up that incident, to release that energy. I did show you this before, and I'm going to bring it up, and people can look it up. There's a chart out there called the emotional pain body, and basically where the emotions get locked in what part of the body. Some emotions get locked in, and that's why it's so important. That's why, you may say, oh, I have a backache. Well, there's something emotional that happened that created some energy block in your back for whatever experience that was. It's important for us to realize that, like you said before, we need to do the work. We need to feel powerful and take ownership that first we need to do something to help ourselves, and then we can go get some help on the physical body, right? If something broke down, like people come to you, their back is killing them, but there's an underlying reason why that's happening.
Well, indeed. And so I'll speak in a chiropractic way for a few moments.
Yes.
And I have a client who's going through something right now, so I'll speak about him. We can look at his x-ray 10, 15 days ago, and we can see that there's looks like there's been disc herniations. There has been spinal injuries, bones are out of alignment, and yet no problems, no pain. And then all of a sudden, the guy has an emotional day at work and then an emotional day at home because of events out of his control occurred. And now this guy can't get off his bed. Now, he didn't do anything physical. He swallowed a fly. So we know that 50%, this is in the medical literature, we know that 50% of spine issues that look like there's disc herniations or bulges or whatnot, there's no pain. And 50% of patients that seem like they have no problems in their spine have severe pain. So we know that the physical alignment in the structure is not the only factor. It takes an additional factor for something, quote unquote, to be activated.
So do you see the medical industry getting more and more into like the energy part of the energetic body, like beginning to study that more?
Well, absolutely. In fact, it's kind of odd because they have acknowledged that for decades now. They use the same kind of technology to get X-rays and MRIs and CAT scans and other kinds of like nerve conduction tests. They are features of a spectrum of energy that has nothing to do with chemistry, nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. Yet their entire scope of practice, and if you're a medical doctor, I believe you must, very rare if you're not in part of the AMA, and kind of like a private association, they have their own laws and stipulations. They cannot talk about anything outside of pharmaceutical biochemistry. It's not their scope of practice. Just like you don't ask a plumber to make your Italian dinner. He may be Italian, but he's not a restaurant. He's a plumber. So there's certain, this is where we need to recognize the kind of professional we seek is the kind of answer we're going to get. So if you are someone who thinks that chemicals are the only way, whether bio, meaning natural, or from life, or synthetic, well, you're missing 80 to 85, maybe 90% of the conversation of what it is to be a human being. And yet, at the same time, there's many medical doctors that are putting out information about the future of healthcare is light, is sound, is frequency, and it's being incorporated outside of the mainstream medical model.
Yes, I believe more people are going the holistic way because they just haven't found a solution with the traditional way, right?
Well, I mean, it used to be the average person over 65 maybe on 3 to 5 medications. Now it's like 12 to 15 medications.
Yep.
More chemicals is not the solution. It's like putting more and more chemicals into the pool and nothing changes. Not just putting more chemicals in. There's something that's feeding. There's something that's in that system that's making it toxic. So this is where all these other practices start to come into play.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit and just talk about the different emotions. David Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins talks about the level of consciousness.
The power versus force. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we speak about that a little bit? Because the emotion of love, compassionate, brings joy from our inner being. But we're looking at the emotions of shame, which is the lowest emotion that there is, and anger and resentment. These emotions, if they stay long enough in our body, we're going to manifest into a body that's not at ease, which is a body growing a disease.
Yes.
Can we touch a little bit on that?
Yeah. Well, let's go Power versus Force, a great book. Anyone goes online, you can type in that title, you can type in emotions, frequencies, all kinds of great graphs.
Level of consciousness, yeah.
Levels of consciousness. I want to just step back from that for a minute and keep it simple. Yeah. What does it feel like to be in shame? What does it feel like to be in joy?
Yeah.
I think the average person can go, oh, this feels low. This feels down. And this is all within our language. And versus joy or glee or happiness or authenticity, which is one of the higher ones, compassion. These are all, they feel lighter. They allow our body to move. They allow our thoughts to be free. They are a higher rate in that emotional spectrum. And it's kind of like, well, I'm going to refer to Professor Emoto. And they weren't the first, and I don't believe they're definitely not the last. There's many other researchers out there that have confirmed this.
Yes.
When they were having people speak into water or pray into water or think into water, love or hate or joy or anger, they all produced a different water crystal shape when that water was frozen. And all the pretty much, if you look at the Power versus Force, you'll see the spectrum of positive emotions. You look at those words in Professor Emoto's work, they're all beautiful crystalline shapes that align with something with mathematical geometry and sacred geometry, which is these algorithmic expressions of mathematical equations that are repeatable, and they're beautiful. We see them in flowers, we see them in pine cones, we see them in fruit, and then when we look at the negative emotions, they are disharmony. When they're frozen, the frozen water crystals look like shattered glass and irregular shapes, and it's a lack of coherence. So when there's a lack of coherence, systems break down. When there's high coherence, systems build. regenerate. And so the human body is an expression of coherence or lack of coherence. And when we are expressing coherence, the body's healing, repairing, regenerating, and enlivening. And of course, oppositely, when we're in the other states. So the
Right.
frequent occurrence to a state of emotion, well, produces the effect in and outside one's life.
Yes.
With that being said, we have a concert of frequencies going on all the time.
Yeah.
So this is where each day brings a new gift.
Mm-hmm. I love
Yet,
that. Yeah.
and this gets into a greater component that Dr. Bruce Lipton referred to in the science of epigenetics, of
Yeah.
aka how the environment influences, yes, the people around you, the air quality, and things like that. But it has to do with the weather, the sunlight, the moonlight, the position of the stars in relationship to the Earth, position of the planets in relation to the Earth. We know they have light detected. We know there's light coming in and out. There's sound coming in and out. There's electromagnetic connections coming out, gravitational connections coming out, and integrating, and that affects the planet Earth. It affects our individual selves, and this is the grand dance. So the more we can find that daily routine of working on ourselves, and actually, this is what got me started. I noticed some days my schedule would be the same, week to week to week to week to week, and I set it on purpose that way. Yet some days went great, and some weeks were falling apart. And I got into, well, what is that about? And that's where epigenetics took me into the energy healing world, and took me into how our systems. This is all Dr. William Tiller's work from
Yeah.
Stanford, and how the cosmic patterns affect us, and it's a beautiful orchestra of a reality that the average person is barely aware of, and yet we are gaining traction in that conversation, and the mental wellness, mental health,
Yes.
the states of mind is what is, I believe, is pushing this forward, because we can't continue as we are. It is
Right.
it seems like it's crashing in a lot of different
Yes. A lot of
angles.
people are suffering.
Yes.
They're suffering. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about bringing this information out, because it's not something that's being taught in schools or, in my education at all either. And I believe more doctors are even looking into like the holistic part, the more natural way of helping their patients, because they see them coming back with the same problems over and over again. And no matter what they try to do for them, there's got to be something else. They're not giving up. So, like yourself, you went into learning another way to help your clients to really come out winning, because
Right.
you win, they win, and this world becomes a better place, right?
Well, absolutely, and I want to give credit to neuroemotional technique, the technique, but then there's a group of doctors and patients who, out of their own pockets, donated money, and from that money, they developed their first research article, and that spawned an addition. Now that has spawned an additional 35 or 40 research articles that are now published, and the research was so profound. In 2017. Jefferson University here in Philadelphia launched a whole new branch of their school called the Integrative Medicine, and they're and they're teaching neuroemotional technique to medical doctors, and as a master's degree, to provide a non-pharmaceutical approach to mental health. And it
Wow.
has shown to change the brain in less than 2 minutes. That decoupling of the stress response of the synapse, so that the organ, and it's not targeted at a specific organ. There's a set pattern of questions and reflexes
Yes.
that direct the practitioner where to help the client place their hands on their own body, and through the breath work component, it
Yeah.
it just releases the neurology, and then the brain resets itself, and then the individual has a new life experience and can think in new ways, and in fact their life opens up in new ways as well. And in fact, it got so much
Beautiful.
acclaim that it was featured on a couple. I think it was on CBS. What's the name of the show? It'll come to me, because I don't watch it. But
Not Good Morning America?
No, it's like on a famous,
Today Show?
8 o'clock at night TV show. Um, oh my goodness! Please pardon me, and I thank you
It's
for your
okay.
grace. Um,
It's all right. I'll come to you. Maybe I'll come to you. But
I will. I
let's
hope.
we're gonna take this for a landing. Tell us how people can get a hold of you if they would love to, work with you, and what do you offer?
Yeah, of course. So drkeving.com. It's my website. No period, all one word. And that's where you can connect to everything I offer. And I work with people on Zoom, on phone calls or video calls, and in person. And I'm in Medford, New Jersey. That's Burlington County, a little bit
Okay.
east of Philadelphia, a little bit west of Atlantic City. And I work with people. I don't hold back. So what I'm saying by that is I apply structural correction even on Zoom. There's a way to work with structure because of some techniques I've learned. And then I work with the mind, I work with the chemistry, and I work with the field. And there's techniques just like a healer would do in person and in Zoom. There are, and lately I've been connecting a lot of people to this technology because it's for the at-home use as well as the clinical use. And I'm just helping people integrate in how to connect to it and use it. And then they join in on coaching calls on a week by week basis. And then I also do kind of like a lifestyle coaching where I incorporate a lot of the Napoleon Hill work with my healing work, with these technologies to really help people address the whole well-roundedness of their life. I needed it. I needed to transform my life. I had massive injuries when I was a child, significant injuries when I was a teenager and playing sports, and a couple, accidents when I was an adult. Some of them are quite severe. And part of my story is here. I'm here to tell people that you can get better.
Yes.
Even if people say, or the doctors say, or whatever has told you you'll never do it, there's so many stories of people getting
Yes.
well. So many different nuances of what that can be, what that can look like for you. Just believe in the natural inherent qualities built within you,
Yes.
the wisdom
Thank you.
within. You want to say God given. I want to say God given inherent quality of life that put that sperm and egg together, that made that flashlight occur, and that
Yes.
spark of life to express itself. And you have the amazing gifts within.
Beautiful. And this is exactly what I'm trying to teach and bring out to the world, that we do have the power within to overcome anything that is given to us, as long as you are open to receive, right? Open to
If
receive.
someone says, yes, I want to improve, yes, I want to get better, well, that's the path. That is literally the step.
Decision. That's the first thing, is
That's
making a
it.
decision, right?
Right.
Awesome.
And it's realize you're going to be on a journey. You're not just going to be with one practitioner. You're going to be meeting
Yes.
lots of people over a lifetime, and they're all going to have different nuances for you. And I happen to be in a great place with the right credentials to get access to advanced trainings, and I followed my path of my heart. And sometimes people don't like that. However, I had to do service and goodness to my own self, be true to thyself. And then from that, I can give greater to the world out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you and the work that you do, because you're making a world a better place. And I'm so thankful. And
Thank you so much.
everyone for joining us today. And please feel free to get in touch with Dr. Kevin, because I know he's can definitely help you. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.